Hi, this is the last of the series about tones, so stay tuned. So I've talked about effects and how they play a major part in the shaping of your tone. Again, the way you pick a guitar, whether you're using your fingers or using a pick, the picking technique, all that plays a part in how your tone will be translated, through all these various techniques that you use. Where you play on a guitar is really important. With pickups, in electric guitar, there are, like, if you have a tree or like a single chord pickups, you have three positions. So where you pick, it plays a part. Right? A good example would be in this guitar with two humbuckers. Now I'm using the last bridge humbucker, and just listen to it as I shift position on where I pick. So there are certain positions that we would call the sweet spot. So from here, you can have a real nasal sounding. I call it a sweet spot because it kind of like projects the tone more than any other position. So for example, if I were to do in this position, as opposed to so at the same time, the way I'm holding my pick is like really close to my skin, so I could do pinch harmonics if I want to. But that's beside the point. So where you play is really important, where you're anchoring your right hand. Can you tell the difference? It's a whole lot of difference. Now, of course, if you switch to the first position, it's not that obvious. There is a slight difference, of course, so something to take note of. One of the most stressful part about being electric guitarist is trying to figure out what sounds good through either the amp or through your monitor speakers. And tones, as I said many times again, they are subjective. Each person hear different frequencies. We have a tendency to hear certain frequencies, and they have a tendency not to hear certain frequencies. So tone is very subjective to each of us. If you have an amp with a simple parameters on board the amp, it would mostly look like this. A gain or a volume, and then the bass, mid, high, and sometimes we call it a presence. These are for the higher frequencies. And of course you have the reverb. Some amps have different gain structures, so they have two gains, gain, the volume, like Sun and Marshall amps, and then again the equalization, the EQs for bass, mid, and highs, and the presence. So as a rule of thumb, I would mostly put everything into center, not the gain part, just the tone. Bass center, mid center, treble center, presence center. And I will bring up, if you are getting a clean sound, I will bring up the gain or the volume. And once I hear some sound coming out from a guitar, depending on which pickups I'm using, I would try to hear what is lacking before I even touch the EQ. If there's too little bass, I will boost up the bass. If it's too little mids, I'll boost up the mids. If I find it the low and the mids are okay, and then if it's too sharp, I'll probably cut down the presence first before I touch the treble, and subsequently work my way around it so that I might bring out a little bit more presence, I might cut down a lot more treble. So basically the presence would probably hit about 5 kilohertz onwards, and you can hear the high shimmering or the real high frequency when you pick a string or when you're playing a chord. So that's where the presence tone is all about. The treble is mostly from 2K onwards, or 3K onwards. So you have that highs, and then you have the presence, which the higher highs. So easier, I think there's an easier term to describe it. And this is how you shape your sound. So don't go adjusting like all over the place, like going overboard. Remember, less is more. So if you find that your low ends are okay, just stay where you are at the bass. Just don't move the bass. This is where your bass is at. Pardon the pun. The bass is at the basic tone. So stick that bass on the middle and work around the highs. If it's too muffled, or you can bring up the highs a little bit more. And then if it's like still too muffled, even though you cranked up your treble to the maximum, then you can probably think about lowering the bass. This is at the last resort. I normally shape my tone that way so that I would not get lost in the whole process. So with all these parameters that I have in a real life amp and the adjustment that I do, I would somehow do the same thing for my Helix. And if you have a multi-effect where you have an amp simulator, then I suggest that you do the same thing. So you treat the amp simulator in your floorboard like a real amp. That's the only way to go, and that was what it was designed to do, to give you a real experience of how it's like to play through an amp. Of course, some manufacturers and some products may be lacking, but I don't want to go there. So what I've experienced is through the Line 6 Helix, so I'm an advocate for that line of product, and I think the simulation works really well. So I would do the same thing to my Helix, adjusting the parameters the way that I would do in a real amp. Of course, the Helix has tons of amp models, so every amp model has different parameters, and they even go so far as to have the bias. You have you know, it's really cool, you know, if you think about it. You need to be a nerd if you're into digging into all these parameters that the Helix can provide. And also you have a choice of the cabinets, so you can have an amp head with a different cabinet. So this is all Helix, so check it out if you want to. But basically we're talking about like a guitar amp, and you're stuck with a combo speaker. With a combo amp, you have that speaker. Sometimes you have a luxury of having, like, you know, a amp head. Then you have the luxury, if you can afford them, to buy different cabinets, and then you can have different sound. And this whole amp tone thing, it's really complicated. It's more complicated than what I can explain, because it involves miking, the way you mic an amp, which mic you're using, which position you're miking the amp at. It could be direct, it could be off, you know, and which speakers are you using. Sometimes you have a cabinet with 4 speakers or 2 speakers. Which one do you choose? Are you using a stereo setup or using a mono setup? So all this get really mind-boggling. But if you're into tone, this is something that you love to do. This is something that you will pursue. This is something that you will want to investigate. So I advise you, if you really want to be serious about your tone, Google it, ask people. And if you don't have the funds or the luxury to try out different amps, don't fret, you know, save out your money and see what life has in store for you, because you may never know. You may play in a club or in a gig where you are faced with different amps. I like all these challenges because, you know, I like to try out different things and see how an Orange amp, for example, would behave, and how a Vox amp would behave, how a Marshall amp would behave, how a Soldano or a Mesa Boogie would behave, and hear the properties of it, you know, hear the different properties of the sound, and you understand what all these amps are about. The tone that you're hearing from your amp and from your guitar is, of course, an accumulation of your technique, your playing technique, the effects you're using, the amps that you're using, how do you present to people what you have gone through. You know, if you're using an amp, the final stage is the amp. So how has it been mic'd out, and how has it been played? How has it been produced to the audience? Is it through the FOH speakers or through a recording? So all this you have to keep in mind and understand. This whole procedure is really, really interesting. You know, it's not that complicated if you're into guitar playing. The tone from your guitar, the tone from your fingers, all this require you to sit down in front of an amp and just play. You cannot have tones coming out just like that. You need to know your technique. You need to know what you're good at. You need to know how long you should keep your fingernails on your right hand. What sort of picks are you using, and how do you hold your pick? How close do you want it to be against your skin? And if you're using just picks, you know, how hard do you strike them? There are soft players, there are hard players, so they have different tones, and a versatile player would be master at both, you know, playing hard at the same time and playing soft, depending on the genre and the mood of the song. So I hope you have fun in this series, and if I'm not explaining too much, it's because I don't want to explain too much. I want it to be an adventure for you guys. You know, playing guitar for me is a joy, and it's a gift from God, and I love it and I cherish it, and I wish the same for you, that you will see it that way. So in your pursuit of tones, in your pursuit of your own individual tone, I just wish, you know, I just pray that you would find joy in all this process and not treat it as a chore. It's never a chore. If you really love playing guitar, if you love music, you will pursue it. So I hope you enjoyed this video, this series of video at least. And if you do, give me a thumbs up and join this channel if you want to. Press that bell for notification for any new videos that will come up. As you know, I'm in the middle of an album production, so I'll try to come up videos as often as I can. work is work. So in the meantime, you guys take care. Ciao.